teachers watching this.
Okay.
Oh, you have it there.
Everyone ready?
Everyone, as if there's enough people.
Vicious, ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon. My name is Beam.
I'm Oi.
I'm Kennie.
We're from grade 11, and we've been at ASP since nursery 1, which means we've practiced mindfulness as a part of our lives since we've known. And today's talk will be talking about how we're applying mindfulness to our everyday lives, how it helped us, surprised us, and changed the way we see things.
Throughout our daily lives, we face many kinds of stressors. One such type of stressor comes from work. I would like to imagine that all of our main duties, which for example for me is my schoolwork, often bring us a lot of stress in life, even though it can be fun and enjoyable at times. Throughout my speech, not only will I delve into the practical uses of mindfulness in order to limit stress in a work setting, but also show you all an example of how I use such techniques throughout a research project that I did this year. Before I start talking about how mindfulness can be used in a work setting, I would first like to give some context about my research project. Not only because it will help you better understand how I use mindfulness effectively, but also because my research investigated mindfulness and its impact on stress levels, and the results that I got from this research provides a valuable insight into how we can use mindfulness effectively. To investigate this, I first researched about existing literature that was already written about this topic in my introduction and literature review section. Then I sent out surveys to students within and outside of ASP, sending them a certified 10-question questionnaire called a PSS scale. Then I compared the results of the stress levels between people with more experience with mindfulness and people with less experience with mindfulness. While I read about existing sources about this topic, I found sources with many different kinds of perspectives. Most of my sources that I read through had either one of two perspectives. First, that mindfulness was beneficial and had many therapeutic benefits, and the other one was that mindfulness was a placebo. While you may have heard the term placebo in a negative light, in this case, placebo just means that mindfulness requires us to fully believe in it in order for it to actually be beneficial. From the results of my research for my survey, we can see that it was quite inconclusive. This is because students with not a lot of mindfulness practice still had the same amount of stress levels as students with a lot of experience in mindfulness. However, if we look at the numbers more deeply, we can see that for the students with a lot of experience practicing mindfulness, there's a big difference in their stress values. Now, even though they have the same schedule in terms of stress, because they come from the same school and have the same curriculum and are in the same grade, you can see that the stress levels of them are clearly different. And while our school provides a mindfulness program for everyone, maybe they don't practice mindfulness and believe in mindfulness the same way than others. This will probably explain why the stress levels of students are different throughout, even though our school, everyone practices mindfulness the same. This relates to the second perspective that I talked about, where mindfulness could be a placebo. One thing that I want to be taken away from my research is that mindfulness is not magic. As we have seen from the sources I talked about and my research, mindfulness is not magic. It requires us to have constant faith and participation in it for us to be able to actually reap the benefits of mindfulness. Throughout my research, I faced many kinds of problems. These problems consisted of stress, procrastination, and writer's blocks. But throughout this, I used mindfulness techniques such as mindful breathing and mindful walking in order to combat them. For mindful breathing, I used techniques such as 4-7-8 breathing and box breathing. These techniques are quick and efficient, which can help with serving as a quick reset for us to get back on track. And the methods that I talked about for box breathing and 4-7-8 breathing are methods that required us to keep counts of our breaths and keep a rhythm going. For example, for box breathing, we would breathe in for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5 seconds, and then keep it going. So maybe we can all try it together once. Breathe in for 5 seconds. Hold. And then breathe out. Similarly, 4-7-8 breathing requires breathing in for 4, holding for 7 seconds, and then breathing out for 8 seconds. So maybe let's all try that together too. Breathe in, hold, and then breathe out. For mindful walking, not only does it help limit my stress, but I feel like it can also get me through different kinds of obstacles. For example, writer's blocks. I often use mindful walking paired with talking with myself in order for me to get through such obstacles. For this, I would ask myself the questions such as, what are the obstacles preventing me from continuing my work? How can I go around or combat this obstacle? Or, if the solution to each obstacle isn't clear, is there anything else I could do to progress in my work? By asking myself these questions, I can clearly evaluate the problem I have and figure out ways to get through it. Now that you've heard about the ways I use mindfulness to help me with my own work, here are some recommendations I have for you to use mindfulness, implement mindfulness into your own working schedules. First is to do what works for you. This basically means that some people work better with specific methods, and it's all up to us, our own maybe research or trying it ourselves to figure out which method works best for you. The other one I have is to pay attention to time intervals. Some people benefit more from shorter practices but more times throughout the day, while others benefit more from longer practices but less times throughout the day. Again, this is all about finding our preferences and modifying them in order for it to fit our preferences in our schedule. To sum up what I said in probably around the last 7 minutes or so, work can be a major stressor, but there are ways to get around it using mindfulness. Mindfulness is not magic. It requires constant faith, participation, and practice in order for it to be effective for us. And lastly, I talked over some methods of mindful breathing and mindful walking and how I used it to assist me.
Alright, raise your hand if you zoned out and need a practice to refocus and energize. Alright, we're going to practice a snapping exercise. So with your left hand, snap up and down. With your right hand, snap in a right angle triangle. Alright, now we're going to put them together. So snap both hands at the same time. Okay, so this is an example of how simple and efficient mindfulness can be. Today I will be introducing ways to make practicing mindfulness fun. So raise your hand if you associate mindfulness with just sitting down with your eyes closed. Well, mindfulness can actually be so much more than that. Your favorite hobbies, passions can be a form of mindfulness too. The purpose of mindfulness is to make you aware of your intentions, feelings, and surroundings. So by doing a boring activity that you force yourself to do isn't going to make it purposeful. Just a simple snapping exercise like what we just did requires a few seconds and can be much more efficient. And some example activities are stretching, coloring, and building Legos. One of my favorite passions I found mindfulness in is tea making. I used to be so stressed when I was making my tea because of the different equipment, tools, and ingredients needed during this process. But after practicing it for 2 years, I turned this into a routine which got rid of all the stress I used to feel in the beginning of my journey. Currently, when I'm making my tea, I will turn off my devices and notifications so I can create a fun and positive environment and play some music in the background. This helps me create a stress-free zone and also allows me to focus on the present moment in my own personal bubble. Additionally, by putting so much energy into something, you get something out of it, like a new skill. For example, I developed a creativity skills, which helps me create unique and new fun drink recipes and snack combinations. Moreover, you can pass your energy and passions onward to your loved ones. Like the phrase, we attract who we are, The more positive energy you give off, the more you receive. For example, when my friends are going through a tough time, I would give them a tea so that they can feel more energetic, and they have said that that has been the highlight of their life, the highlight of their day, sorry. I found myself thinking, this is more than mindfulness. This is a movement, not physical, by the way, because the energy I'm putting into my activity and passing on to others is all becoming joy and happiness to everyone who's receiving this energy. If you have limited time, a mindful practice you can do is mindful eating and drinking. This is the process of being present without any devices, so you can break down the food or drink you're tasting with all five senses. I like to practice mindful drinking when I'm drinking my tea by breaking down the aroma, the taste, the color, and the texture of the tea. Overall, I want everyone to remember that any fun activity, whether long or short, can be turned into a mindfulness practice. Just be consistent. Now, I will be demonstrating how I mindfully make my tea.
And instantly lift up your movement. Whether it's scrolling past a video of a dog or spending time with your pets, it somehow makes everything feel a little lighter. But I've come to a realization that it's not just their presence that's comforting, it's how we're present with them. Today I'm going to talk about how I practice mindfulness through my animals and how it helped me realize and learn powerful lessons. How to slow down, how to live in the present, how to manage stress, and how to appreciate life while we have it. I connect deeply with this topic because I live with 4 dogs who brings me peace and joy every day. Preparing for college admissions and exams, I barely have time to rest and just let loose. My routine is full of lessons, tutoring, school, homework, and preparing for this talk. This is my actual schedule. As you can see, it's my wallpaper, and I added my dogs because it gives me motivation to study. It all sounds exhausting, doesn't it? Because it is. But every time I walk through my front door, I'm greeted by my dogs with their wagging tails and excited barks, and suddenly my mind softens. That moment every day became something I started paying attention to. And then it hit me. Those moments are not just comforting, they're opportunities to slow down, take a deep breath, and reconnect with the present moment. The more I started to really pay attention, the more things I noticed about my dogs. How they move, how they feel, how they sound, and how they enjoy every moment. I started practicing mindfulness through them. And in doing that, I didn't just feel more calm. I started learning how to heal. Have you guys ever heard of the quote, "To heal is to feel"? It's a simple quote, but it holds so much truth. We often run away from discomfort, trying to suppress and hide our emotions. But healing doesn't come from running. It comes from absorbing ourselves in those feelings, allowing ourselves to accept and let it go. My dogs don't overthink or dwell, they just exist. And by observing them, I've learned that we can just be. We don't have to always be productive to be worthy of peace. Now, how do we actually practice mindfulness with animals? It's about slowing down and noticing. When you are interacting with an animal, notice how they feel, how they move, how they smell. Notice how their body rises and falls as they're breathing. When you spend time with an animal, you begin to calm your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and gain clarity. You don't need a pet to do this. You can be mindful by observing the nature, watching the birds, and observing the fish tank. By doing this, you allow yourself to ground and stay in the present. And through all this, I've learned something new. I began to understand impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not our stress, not our to-do list, and not our loved ones. One day, my dogs won't be there to greet me. And yes, it's a sad thought, but it's also what makes this moment so precious. We often think that we always have time for the ones we love, for the hugs we haven't given, but nothing is promised. Animals don't worry about time. They don't hold on to the past or obsess over the future. And by being mindful with them, I've learned to do the same. This lesson extends far beyond animals. It also applies to the ones we love. Practicing mindfulness has taught me to cherish what's in front of me, to not postpone love, to not wait for the perfect moment because this moment might be the one that matters most. In accepting impermanence, I've learned to live with more gratitude, and that gratitude makes every connection, humans or animals, deeper, fuller, and more real. So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed, pause, take a breath, make a drink, or sit with your pets. Allow yourself to feel. Allow yourself to be still, because to feel is to heal. I learned this through practicing mindfulness with animals, and maybe you can too. So now, it's the end of our talk, but we have activities in each corner of the room. In this corner will be mindful drinking and tea tasting. And then in the back corner would be my fish watching. And then
here's like any questions you have about my research project or just mindful breathing and mindful walking.
okay. So you guys can break out and then walk around and see each activity. Thank you.
Yeah.